Do you have an account or do you want?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, we need to mute you. It is Tuesday, May 26, 2020. I would like to call to order the regularly scheduled school board meeting of the Othello School District Board of Directors. We will commence the meeting tonight with the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome everyone who's on the Zoom call tonight, board members, administrators, everybody who's on here. Thank you for being on here. To the public, if you're on here as well, thank you very much. Once again, we'll begin with the full disclosure. Hopefully technical difficulties don't come in tonight and we get through this meeting and everything goes as planned. Thank you, everyone. We'll have a discussion later as to our format going forward and things of that nature, but I'm hoping that my phone doesn't go off like it just did. I'm sorry. Perhaps this may be our last Zoom meeting. We'll discuss that here in a little bit, but want to welcome all of our guests tonight. Thank you very much for being here. I will now entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I move that we approve tonight's agenda with a single addition under board discussion. I would like to add a discussion about linkage.
And I will second that motion with the addition.
Okay, we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda with the addition of community linkage under board discussion. Seconded by Director Johnson as well. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item B1. Do we have any public comment, Aaliyah? Okay, we have no public comment. Item B2, board member discussion. Oh, no. I keep thinking I can move my screen here. All right, do we have a ledge report, Director Stevenson?
We do. On Friday, I will be participating in resolutions committee meeting through WASDA. And this will be a go-to meeting. So I'll be here in town, but it's an all-day meeting. We start with the resolutions committee, and then we link with the legislative committee to talk about all of the different positions that have been proposed by other WASDA members or WASDA staff. And so that will be interesting to see what comes up. Our LEA support, our support of Walla Walla's LEA committee proposal, that has been shown that we supported that. So it will be interesting to see. It will be the first time that I've been part of the whole cycle. So it'll be interesting to see what that is, but that's coming up.
Okay, very good. Once again, I want to thank everyone for completing our self-assessment of our meetings after we're done on the Zoom meeting here. Thank you very much for that. Also, we need to have a look at our calendars and come together with a date that will work for everyone to hold a board retreat. In the past, it has been at a location out of town. I think the situation now calls for something different perhaps, so I'd like to hear some ideas of possible dates and preferred locations for this retreat.
When do we have to, so we need to have the board retreat before we have the superintendent's evaluation. What is the date, the proposed date on the new?
June 22nd.
Could we just do it at the district office? There in the boardroom? And because in the past, it's just been the 5 of us, the superintendent, and someone for notes. And so that's 7 people. Then we're not going anywhere. We're not, I don't know. That's my thought.
Go ahead, Ken, you're unmuted.
I think it would be really difficult to do it by Zoom. I think it would be faster and easier face-to-face for that one, personally.
I am personally fine having it at district office. Looking at, so what day were you looking at right now? On the 22nd?
22nd is our meeting, our executive session
our,
for the evaluation.
Yeah. Okay, so we would need it sometime before that. And I think there's some other things that we also need too, but if we could get them out, and that's the surveys to the public, to staff that we've had in the past. Also, because we use a lot of that information from those surveys at this retreat.
Chris, do we have enough time to send those surveys out? Could those be sent out right away? Okay.
How long does our retreat last?
In the past, Lindsay, it's been an entire day. It's a good 8 to 5.
Like 6 to 8 hours.
Yeah.
Has been what it's been in the past. We go over every single survey question. We modified the survey questions last year. So if we waited until we were at phase 3, that's a minimum of 3 weeks. If all went as fast and as possible, that's like the 18th. That's really fast. Could we do, are we thinking an evening or are you thinking a Saturday?
I'm thinking a Saturday. I could be convinced to do it on a weeknight as well, but I'm thinking a minimum, a 4-hour meeting, I think, even if we condense this, we're looking at no less than at least 4 hours. And I don't know that I want to be 6 to 10 or 7 to 11. That's just me. Again, you know, we can discuss this and whatever we need to do.
Is there any chance if we did it on a weekday that we could start maybe at like 4 in the afternoon and go 4 to 8?
I'm open to that as well.
That would work better for me than a Saturday. Just
What if we tried the 17th? It's a Wednesday from 4 to 8. And then we tentatively had, if we had to go to like a part 2, we could either do that the next night or the 20th, which is a Saturday.
I'd be okay with that. June 17th, 4 to 8.
I am
Good with
good
that.
for that too. They're good dates for me.
Sharon?
I'm also open on the 18th if we had to roll it over to the 18th.
Chris, what's your agenda like? Underneath. Okay. All right. So,
Have we heard from Sharon?
yeah, she's actually here in the boardroom tonight.
Oh, okay.
So we're just trying to unmute her.
That sounds good to me.
Okay, so I think we're in accordance here. And Wednesday, June 17th, from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., we will schedule a board retreat. Any topics or suggestions of ideas that you want discussed that night, please email them to me so I can get together an agenda for that meeting. And we will work on getting those surveys out just as quick as we can to have that. Yeah, go ahead.
I was wondering, since Lindsay and I have never been to one, could we have some kind of a prior agenda so we would know what things we need to look at to ask?
Yeah, we can email you the agenda of the past board retreats. You can get an idea of what it'll be like, and you can make any.
Okay.
Mike, you're muted if you're talking.
I am muted. Wednesday, June 17th, 4 to 8 p.m. We will have our board retreat here in the district office. Want to assure the public that we will practicing social distancing and all the other rules that we are required to abide by in these COVID-19 times. Moving on.
You know, I do want to say one thing. I said that in the past, we've only had the 5 board members, the superintendent, and a person to take notes. Only because that's only who has attended. It's an open public meeting, but that's just who has been there in the past. We have not had it by, we've only had it on audio recording. We have not had it on video recording. So I think that we need to define what we're going to do about that.
Well, number one, since it is an open public meeting, it is open to the public. I think we would have to look at aesthetically how we could set up seating to be practicing social distancing in case we did have members of the public that would attend. This is a non-participative meeting, of course. This isn't a Q&A or anything like that. They'll be bored to death watching us talk to each other. But yeah, it is a OPMA. We can get back to the public, I think, with a number. I hate to on the fly here try to make up rules, but I think it would be if we determine that 10, 15 people can fit in here safely, a first come, first serve or something like that, I think would be, what do you think, Ken, on the?
Ken, you're muted.
Okay, I agree. And you know, there's even a chance that we may be even phase 3 at that time. It's a possibility. And that's what I'm really hoping for. good news again tonight, no more cases. And if we can continue that, then I think we'll be able to jump in, and that will allow a little more, I think, numbers of
Meetings
gathering.
up to 50, right?
Yes. So, but social distancing, I believe, still has to be practiced. And like I said, it's always going to be available by Zoom too, even if we do get too many in the room. It's no difference than probably an occupancy load in a building. Once we reach that number, we'll just have to say sorry and go to a Zoom for the remainders.
I think maybe instead of saying Zoom, they have to watch it through YouTube, I think is what you were referencing.
Yes, yes.
Do the student reps come to our board retreat?
They have not in the past,
Okay.
only because we like slept away and those kinds of things. It's a pretty intense, long meeting. Not that they can't come or couldn't come for parts of it. We just haven't invited them in the past.
I think it'd be up to them, unless once the agenda is made and there's an executive session planned at that retreat. But I don't anticipate that being the case. But I think extending them an invitation, I don't think is ever going to hurt anything. Yes, did we say YouTube Live for that? It's been audio in the past.
I think because of the convenience of how close we've always been, because it's all set up in there, I would, and because potentially we might have a limited amount of public seating in the room. I agree. I think I think that every time Ken said you can participate by Zoom, he meant by YouTube. So I think this once, it would be a good idea to have it YouTubed.
What is the rest?
Definitely, I agree. I agree.
And I think in the past, the only reason why we haven't YouTubed it is because of the location we were at had extremely limited internet access and didn't have the bandwidth to do like a 6 or 8 hour YouTube. I don't think it was because we were not wanting it. I think that was the only reason why.
All right, we will look into seeing what YouTube is capable of, and if they can do the extended 4 hours or however long it is, that's what we'll do. All right. Also, I would like to get yes, no's, maybe so's, holding our next board meeting here in the boardroom in person, and having, of course, practicing COVID-19 rules and restrictions. Are we ready for that? I know I am ready.
I am ready also.
I'm ready. This is nice.
Okay.
I'm
All
ready
right.
as well.
All right. So
Here's my concern with going there when we're still in phase 2. Phase 2 is very specific about saying you can only meet with 5 people at a time that are outside your immediate household. I would love to be there and for us all to be in person, but I think that would immediately force everyone in the room, and it's not just us, it's all those staff, to be out of compliance with the phase 2. I would be more comfortable saying as soon as we're at phase 3 or phase 4, then we're in person in the boardroom personally.
Can we do some further checking with the Department of Health or our local county health officer and find out what they are still recommending and what direction we can go? Because I'm ready to meet in person, but like I said, we don't want to go against their recommendations. So
I agree, Ken. That is we'll do some checking up on that, and of course we will notify. Well, you all be notified and the public as well as to how we will have our next meeting. But if we get the green light or if we get okayed, I would love to get our meetings in person here. Get back to that. Okay, Director Stevenson, you requested linkage discussion. Tell us what's on your mind.
So if and when we approve the agenda, is agenda the right word? The schedule, the timeline for the next year worth of meetings and the topics, included in every month is some linkage discussions. My personally view is the way that we've been doing them for the last year, where 2 of the 5 board members each month go to a very open-ended whatever group. I don't think that is working. I don't think it has worked according to the way that the plan was. I don't know if that means we come up with a totally different plan, or we just abandon it completely, or we put it on. Maybe that's a discussion that we have at our board, at our retreat, is to discuss. I know that that just adds more time. But without us all having thoughts about, like, how can we do linkage, where or when, or the logistics of the linkage is a frustration. And I think not so much a waste of time, but it's not being utilized the way that the idea was.
It will absolutely be one of the agenda items for the retreat. Hopefully, if we start putting some thought to it from here to then, we'll have some concrete ideas, and it won't be a very prolonged discussion. We can come together on some sort of community linkage. But that will be one of the things discussed at the retreat.
Okay. So when and if we approve that, then I want that every month, that part to be removed from, and I'll bring that up I'll make an amendment when we go to approve that.
Not a problem. All right, moving on. Item B3, student representative reports. I don't know if Elise or...
I'm on. Elise is
All right.
on. So I don't think Lauren's on, but I know she wanted to say something about the ASB. And I just want to congratulate our ASB officers for the upcoming school year. So I'll just read off what they got. So Jack Gentry is our ASB president. Our vice president is Vanessa Valentine. Our secretary is Hallie Paris. Our treasurer is Cassandra Ragland. Our publicity manager is Kai Quigley, and our assistant publicity manager is Kenzie Simpson. So I just wanted to congratulate them.
Very good. Thank you for that, Elise. Did you say Lauren was not on?
I didn't see her on.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for being on, Elise. Appreciate you showing interest and showing up for these meetings. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Item C1, required approvals. I will entertain a motion to approve the required approvals.
Can we go back to that whole list? I know it's a long list, just to making sure where. Thank you. I have a few questions, I guess, before we approve on some of the accounts payable and some details on procurement cards. So accounts payable, we have intoximeters. The cost is $814, but what is an intoximeter and why do we have those?
So the intoximeter check this month was for mouthpieces for our breathalyzers. Those are used at school events like prom and dances at the high school, just as a preventative measure.
So is that used, I know that this is probably is not your realm, but is that used if someone is acting suspicious, or does every student act?
Jen, just to let you know, it's a common practice for our high schools at events when students are coming into a prom or to a dance or some event. Typically, students are lining up and you do a check of their purse to see if they have appropriate material in the purse. And then you also conduct a breathalyzer. So that's typical.
Okay. Haven't been
We want to just make sure that our
to
students
dance in
are
a really long time.
behaving appropriately.
Okay, gotcha. Stevens Clay, our lawyer, this round is $23,000. In the past, that's typically been a 2-month bill. Just confirm, is that a 2-month bill? And can we get some kind of, I don't want like specific details or anything like that, just kind of generalized breakdown.
Absolutely. I just shared some information with the board as well. This is a 1-month bill. It's for the month of May. It amounts to $23,786.36. Actually, it's broken down by the type of conversations that are happening throughout the month with executive team members and the number of conversations as well. So just to kind of give you an idea for the board and for the public, there's conversations around donation agreements. There was a couple of different organizations like the food bank who wanted to donate some food to our parents. So we really have to look at those agreements to make sure that we're doing everything appropriately. Arbitration processes, and since we're in COVID-19 and blended learning, online educational services, there's some FERPA issues. We have to have conversations with the attorneys regarding FERPA issues.
I'm sorry, what is FERPA?
There's PRA requests. There's employee discipline issues as well. There's always conversations that's happening on a regular basis between ODA, which is Othello Directors Association, and also OEA. And also conversations around graduation, just making sure that we're doing everything appropriately. And also there's been some valedictorian, salutatorian conversations as well. But I've broken down those items and also just a breakdown of the number of conversations that happen across the month of May to give us that total of 23,000.
What does FERPA stand for? Dr. Hurst?
Yes.
What does FERPA stand for? You're on mute, Dr. Hurst.
FERPA is Family Education Rights and Privacy Act.
Okay. Gotcha. And
Chris,
then,
go
ahead, Ken.
While we're still on the attorney, is some of those questions that you brought up that you say you're taking to the attorney, does the ESD have personnel that could answer some of those questions, or the WASDA resources that are available to the school district without every time going to the attorney? I just have a problem with this too, because I've looked at the attorney bills over the last few months, and I'd almost like he's the highest paid employee of the district now with what we've been paying him. And is it necessary to go to him every single time? Is there other avenues we could research first before we go to the attorney, where he's going to start the clock as soon as he picks up the phone?
I think if you look at the document that I sent you, some of the issues are very specific to specific situations where our attorney has to be involved in. So as I shared with you around donation agreements, so we have to have a legal representative, an attorney that actually looks at those agreements to make sure that we're doing everything correctly, to make sure that there's no liability against the district. Again, any issue that's dealing with an employee, whether it's arbitration process or discipline, ODA or OEA conversations, our attorney has to be involved in those conversations. I have not seen anything on the list that I sent with the board that would allow us to first go to an ESD to ask questions. Everything that I shared with the board in this particular bill and in previous ones really are issues that's has to happen with our attorney. But I certainly get your point, Ken, using other resources. And I think we do that as well. I know for me, myself, I rely on our superintendent network within the region. And we do collaborate, and I do get questions answered, but particularly it's not questions that rise to the level of getting an attorney involved. So around COVID-19, those are questions I can ask Darcy from ESD, or I can ask a fellow superintendent. So there have been many cases where we actually do go to ESD to get those questions answered. But if you look at the list that I shared with you, those are conversations that have to happen between the organization and an attorney. But point is well taken.
Thank you.
And then my last question for this report, transportation, $294. Can you tell me how many buses that cost is for?
$294,000.
I'm sorry, yes, 1,000. Yeah, I put a big K on my paper, but you didn't.
$294 would not buy us any buses other than the little toy ones. But the $294,000 is two of the full-size buses.
Okay. Perfect. I know that consistently about every year we get one or two, so I can't remember how much they cost. So, all right.
A lot.
I move that we approve the required approvals.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Stevenson to approve required approvals. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Prowse. All in favor, aye? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item C2, superintendent informational items. Do we have any questions for the superintendent on any of the documents he provided?
Can you remind me how much the track and field update cost is?
You're asking Chris, right?
Yeah, I can jump in here. The track and field
Can you chime in on that, Jeanette? Estimated cost of the track and field repair.
Yeah, the estimated cost at this point, obviously, we don't know exactly what concrete work will need to be done. But with taxes and all of that, it's about $640,000.
So with the update to the transportation, parking lot, and the upcoming expenses to the track and field, is that why $500,000 was transferred out of the general fund into the capital projects fund?
Yeah, I will be making those kinds of transfers over the summer as we kind of buy down our cash with the projects that are going on. And so you guys will see those periodically. This is the first one. They probably won't be quite so big most of the time.
Okay, I just wanted to, I knew that was coming up. I just wanted to confirm that was why that there was that transfer. Yeah, and instead of transferring all of the money to cover all the projects at once, I'm going to phase that in so that the just provides a little bit more even cash flow. Okay.
Jeanette, this Ken, I just have a question. I know through the budget process, we approved to transfer up to $5 million out of our
general fund
into the capital facilities fund. But does that require when we do transfer money, actually transfer it, does that require a approval of the board?
It doesn't, because you approved it in the budget.
Okay.
Yeah, so if it's approved within the budget, then it's considered under that budget resolution that was approved when you approved the budget. if it's something that you do after the fact, it technically doesn't require a budget extension, but if you do it after the fact, then it does require a resolution to be approved by the board.
Okay.
So I have a follow-up question to that then. Then when we approve a new budget, and if we haven't moved the full 5 million, then so you could only, okay, I have multiple questions as always. So with what you said, you can only move chunks at a time up to $5 million within this budget, correct?
Yes, or I mean, you could move the whole 5 million all at once if you wanted to.
Oh yes, right. So then, since we approved that in the last budget, in the upcoming budget, if you haven't used all of it and there's still things left outstanding on track and field, or let's say portables or something, then have to reapprove, or does that $5 million a few years ago still work for all of the rest of these other things that we might continually do?
No, so when we do the new budget, we'll approve a new transfer amount, and basically it will be less than the 5 million based on however much we've transferred either to that point or how much I project that we're going to transfer. So there will be a differential value there, as well as in that capital projects budget for expenses, if that makes sense. So there's definitely some projections that go into that.
So is there a benefit of it staying in other than convenience for your spreadsheets? Is there a convenience that we're getting for leaving the money in the general fund? Like, does it make more money in the bank kind of a concept?
Yeah, so where it is now in the general fund, we get investment earnings in both, but really the bang for your buck is in the general fund.
Okay, is that because of the highest dollar amount that's there?
Yeah, and just the fund balance that we have right now, we're able to invest more. It's not all of our money is put into the same pot across all of the funds. It's put into different investment pools.
Okay, gotcha.
That's the simplest way to say that.
When I looked at this afternoon, I don't remember seeing the update on the high school graduation. Can you go into that one, please?
Yes, I wanted to share with the board and the public that we did 2 rounds of surveys. The first round of surveys, the second round of surveys was just finished. This one gave us more of an opportunity to look at when we wanted to have the graduation. Most of the students shared that they did not want most of the students shared that they wanted a later graduation, which would actually give us more of an opportunity to have a bigger graduation. Very few students shared that they wanted a virtual graduation. So based on the survey data from the students, July the 17th was selected as our date. And what we have been sharing with our community is that we're going to look closer to the beginning of July, right around July the 3rd, and we'll be able to see what phase we're in from the governor's reopening, reentry plan. And based on that, there'll be several options that we'll be able to say, okay, this is what type of graduation that we can have on July the 17th. And we're looking at this date for both OHS and for DOHS. So first, we would look at what phase we're in and then whether we can have a student-only graduation. The student-only graduation, which means that every student could be there. Of course, we would have social distancing. We can't control the crowd, so we did not have the audience in that particular scenario. The next option for July the 17th for both schools would be looking at a small group graduation for each of the schools on the same day. So that would look like having multiple sessions. So there will be a designated time for those groups to show up with social distancing guidelines and appropriate PPE, and they'll be held in multiple sessions. The third option would be an individual graduation event in which the student would have a very specific time. They would show up, they would come in their gown, they would receive their diploma, and there would be a photo opportunity. But of course, The date certainly is set, but what we don't know at this time, because it depends on what the governor says and where we are in the phasing, what type of graduation we can actually have. I know there has been conversations between you and your constituents about having a graduation now, earlier, and possibly in June. And all the information that we're receiving from the state superintendent and also from the Department of Health is there are no options right now other than an online virtual graduation. So there's virtually no other option that we can have at this time. I know there has been a proposal of having a parade type of graduation. We discussed that and we looked at what the traffic would look like, and that's just not an option at this time as well. So I know that many people in the community are certainly well-intentioned, and it's certainly a big topic for everyone. And we want to have the best graduation that we can for our kids, for our students, our seniors. But right now, having a full-blown ceremony or even a parade ceremony is just not an option. And again, based on that survey by the students, the consensus was, let's put it at a later date. That way there's more of an opportunity to have a bigger ceremony. So that's where those, the date came from and those three options came from. Any questions on graduation?
I have oh my gosh. As a person that has planned fairly substantial sized events, I am so concerned and worried about those that have to plan graduation, knowing that, hey, we have all these great plans, and that sounds like a better option and maybe more so what the students want. But hey, you're only going to have like 2 weeks to plan this whole thing for this massive event that there's 3 different major options that could happen. That gives me a lot of concern for those individuals, whoever that may be that's planning it, whether it's somebody that has done it for years and maybe could pull off a normal one in their sleep, but there's so much planning and training of the students and everything that I understand the why, but the background people.
Jen, it could be done. I know it could be done. I've seen it done. I seen it done here 40 years ago. In 1980, after Mount St. Helens, how it changed everything here. The community rallied together and we got it done. I was part of that graduating class and it happened. I have confidence in our community that when it comes down to it, we could get it done.
I think just to answer your...
Be done. Go on.
Is it okay if I respond to you, Jen? I think we have Pete on the line. We've been having these conversations about the planning process. So Pete, can you chime in and just share the work that's been happening?
Absolutely. Good evening. I just wanted to let everyone know that we did have an opportunity today to meet with the Senior Activities Committee from OHS. Certainly Mr. Vergara, who's on the call as well, was part of the meeting. And one of the action items that came out of that meeting was to do exactly what Director Stevenson is talking about, prepare for these 3 significant models. And so what they're going to do is they're going to develop the first model, which is our really more traditional graduation. They'll use their typical template. They'll develop the strategies and the assignments for that. Then behind that, they will have option 2. Here's what that model will be. Behind that will be option 3. All 3, they've committed to having all 3 of those options well-designed and assignments identified late next week, so that when the time comes at the 1st of July, we'll be able to implement one of those 3 plans. So those ideas and concepts are being discussed continually. And so it won't be, they'll only have 2 weeks to plan. They have all month to plan, and then they'll have 2 weeks to implement whichever plan is selected at the time.
And they're okay with planning 3 massive events? Or they're just being told, you get to plan 3 massive events, yay!
Yeah, what we committed to our employees was that We understand that contracts don't extend throughout the summer for many of them. We do have many year-round employees that have expertise and experience holding a graduation. We've also had, and I think Ken's point about the community, our community of teachers, we've had so many step up and say, I'll volunteer, I'll be there, I'll do it. So I don't think there's any concern about having enough help. Will it be the folks who have typically been assigned that work? They may have other summer activities and commitments that we want them to honor. So we wouldn't ask them to take on those additional roles, but I'm very confident that we'll have more than enough folks to put on a nice event.
Okay.
Awesome. Awesome. Any other questions for the superintendent? Okay. Moving on, item D1, board response to monitoring documents or to monitoring reports. And I should have opened another Chromebook. Okay. Ends 1, academic competencies. Academic competencies, each scholar at every grade level will perform at or above the state or district standards in all disciplines, core and non-core. All scholars will demonstrate evidence of continuous growth and improvement in their performance year over year, closing the opportunity and achievement gaps. All scholars will demonstrate transfer of knowledge and skills across disciplines. We had 5 respond. We had 2 in compliance, 2 or 3. What's the blue one? Can you take it down?
In compliance is not the right word.
Superintendent has made reasonable progress.
Thank you.
And 3 that said the district is making progress. I don't have the verbiage in front of me, guys. I apologize. I should have got another Chromebook to have it on the side here. But there's some comments there that I'll read. I'm trying to make Dalia's screen bigger on my screen. We have superintendent has reasonably interpreted the provisions of the relevant ends policies, and the district is making reasonable progress toward achieving the desired results called for in the relevant policy. The superintendent has shown exemplary performance in the following areas. 2 responded in that answer. The district is making progress toward achieving the desired results called for in the relevant ends policies, but a greater degree of progress is expected in the following specific areas. Thank you. Choice number 3 would have been the superintendent has failed to provide evidence of reasonable organizational progress toward achieving the desired results called for in the relevant ends policy. Recommended follow-up action listed below. And the 4th answer, the 4th choice was the information provided by the superintendent is insufficient for the board to decide whether reasonable progress has been made. Recommended follow-up action listed below. There are 2 comment suggestions. Number 1, pre-COVID-19, the district was showing progress towards the desired results. I have no doubt that if we had a normal school year, that number would have continued to improve more. Number 2, without having an end-of-year standardized test to compare past years to this year, this is an unprecedented time. You listed concerns with 9th grade being on track, closing the gap, and interventions. Also, financial course enrollment was down. With schools being closed, this is to be expected. In order for advancement to be accurate and not just passing the problem or lack of knowledge being moved from one grade up to the next and never fixing the gap, then more work needs to be done here. I think each of these areas are interrelated. Digital learning has really made it so PBL can be explored in more classes and subjects than has been in the past, at least in my children's experience. Hopefully, this will help to fill those areas and engage more individual students. Okay, just Nobody's seeing me. Okay, that's fine. Nobody needs to see my mug anyway. All right. So, absolutely. I think as we go through all three of these tonight, I should have started with a disclosure, or not a disclosure, a statement, I guess. Whether we like it or not, I know we don't like it. And I know I disagree a lot of times, even in the sports world, where there's a record with an asterisk by it. I think that's where we're at. There will be a COVID-19 mark, asterisk to anything we do the second half of this year. It is what it is. I was very pleased with the mid-year report. I thought we had made great strides, and I agree with the comment that says, had we had a normal year, I really think all those goals, or most of them, if not all of them, would have been met or exceeded. Having said that, we got to deal with what we have, and these comments are there. Ends one. I know, is this in compliance or not in compliance? That's not the verbiage. Was not met.
Well, it's saying that we've made progress towards the
There we go.
desired results, pretty much.
But a greater degree is
Yes.
expected.
And you know, I was really on the line between the top two choices. But then I go back and look at the circumstances that the district, and I looked at this as a district as a whole. I didn't look at this as Dr. Hurst as an individual, because we've got a lot of staff out there that were working really hard to try to get these numbers up. And then all of a sudden, this COVID-19 was thrown at them. And they still continue to try to work really hard with the distance learning. And I know there's been a lot of struggles out there with the staff and distance learning and trying to get all the students to participate and continue on. Unfortunately, the only losers in this one is the kids, from what they are losing in their education and the time in the classroom that they really need. And I was the one that made the first statement about the COVID-19. I kind of looked at it as a whole, as the district itself. They were strides being made. Unfortunately, circumstances are thrown at us that we couldn't give a good, fair evaluation of the whole picture.
Okay, anybody else care to chime in?
So granted, we can't look at last year's compared exactly apples to apples. I looked at more of Dr. Hurst's report, that what he said were the failures and which of the ends those specific things fit into. And then I read last year's report for each specific ends before I made my decisions. I think that great strides are being made. And that I think that if we would have been able to have the big year-end tests, they would have shown that there were great strides being made. But again, for me, it was, I'm looking at the report, and I think that there's still, I still think that we wouldn't have quite achieved where I wanted us to be, even with the great strides that we're making. I think that next year we're really going to be there. And I think that we all hope and want to be there, and meet the goals that the district has set. And so mine is the big, long comment. I think that a lot of teachers are really looking outside of the box and doing different kinds of learning, since digital learning has thrown everybody a curve, and they are able to really get into different types of learning and engagement. And I think that that's a huge part of the key, engagement. So my view is just, we're not quite there. We've made a lot of steps and progress from even last year. We're still just not quite there.
Okay. Moving on to ends 2. Ends 2, graduation and advancement. Each scholar will graduate with the knowledge and 21st century skills to access post-secondary education, or a meaningful career. Each scholar will be knowledgeable and skilled in global competencies, including investigating the world, recognizing perspectives, communicating ideas and taking action, financial skills, stewardship, and effective decision-making, personal health and fitness competencies, cultural competencies, and sensitivity to our culturally diverse community and world. Can I scroll down on this? I'm not being able to. Okay. I'm having all kinds of troubles with, I'm still at ends 1.
That's ends 2.
Yeah. So how do I? Okay, there we are. Sorry, guys. Our answer choices were superintendent has, before we go on, do we keep both comments for ends 1, guys? What's the consensus there?
I'm okay with both.
Okay.
I think both are totally valid and correct.
What do you think, Sharon? Keep both comments? Okay, I'm getting a head nod from Sharon. Lindsay?
I'm fine with that.
All right, we'll keep both comments on E1, end 1. Okay, again, our choices are the same for ends number 2. 4 people answered superintendent has reasonably interpreted provisions of the relevant ends policy, and the district is making reasonable progress toward achieving the desired result called for in the relevant policy. The superintendent has shown exemplary performance in the following areas. We had 1 response. The district is making progress toward achieving the desired results called for in the relevant policy, but a greater degree of progress is expected in the following areas. There is 1 comment. It reads, last year's report showed your biggest concerns were graduation rates. That number was improved greatly in both the last 5 years and since last year. This is a whole team. Congratulations. I agree with that comment as well. I'd like to have that comment left there. Any other discussion? Okay, moving on. Ends 3, personal responsibility and citizenship. Each scholar will have the knowledge and will take responsibility for his or her academic success. Each scholar will participate sufficiently to enable effective learning. Each scholar will demonstrate ethical behaviors, treating others with dignity and respect. All 5 responses were superintendent has reasonably interpreted the provisions of the relevant ends policy, and the district is making reasonable progress towards achieving the desired results called for in the relevant policy. The superintendent has shown exemplary performance in the following areas. We have a comment that reads, in last year's reports, you listed MMS discipline as the greatest struggle. This year has been improved dramatically. Granted that the data shown was only about 3/4 of the year since closure took place, but great progress has been achieved in this area and massive work towards a turnaround at this school. Attendance district-wide has been a focus that has improved when still in classrooms. I do have concerns about attendance and personal responsibility for all students with digital learning. I think the progress has been made from the beginning of the digital learning to now with teachers, not just assessing homework, but trying to engage students and really care about them. Not all teacher staff do this or do it well, but there are many that have really risen to the top and shown that they care about not just the academic needs of each student, but the emotional and other needs as well. Digital learning has been a big learning curve for everyone. It is still not perfected, but caring about the whole child student has really taken center stage at this time and is of a higher importance here. Thank you for that focus. That was also a great comment. I don't know if we have any other discussion on this end. Go ahead, Ken.
Mike, if I could just chime in on that, we're at the end of these three policies. I would just like to really compliment the two new board members. This is one of the hardest areas for I think, to go over and determine, because basically we're putting, these are our end policies. This is the year end, what we determine how all of our other policies are going. And unfortunately, you two board members only had a couple months with us before the COVID-19 struck, and it makes it kind of hard on your decision making on this. And I'd just like to compliment you for your time that you did put in on this. I do have some problems. And I've had this discussion with Mike before, that unfortunately, because of COVID-19, I don't think that policy governance was really built for that situation. So we have to adapt to it and really make our determinations of what could have been. It's really hard to do it at these times, what have been, unfortunately. And like I say, I just want to thank you. Thank all the board members.
Absolutely.
Ditto to what Ken said. This is a really difficult, these are the essential surveys. I think of all of our surveys, yeah, they're all important and good to know, but these are the essential, most essential ones. And so, yeah, they're really key. But also, I want to congratulate Dr. Hurst on making big changes and great strides in all of these, even from last year. I mean, you've set some high goals for yourself and for the district, and I think that you're making a great amount of progress towards them as well. No, it's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but great amount of progress. Even though one of those we did decide that not quite enough, but and even during this time, we've all been frustrated with one thing or another. I'm sure you've been frustrated as well many times, but I know that you're doing everything that you can to keep up, and thank you.
Absolutely. I'd be remiss if I don't chime in and give kudos, especially to Sharon and Lindsay, Ken, Jen, all of you. Thank you very much. But Sharon and Lindsay, like Ken alluded to, you guys were thrown into this, and I thank you both. You have come to find out how time-consuming this is, and how important this is, and you've taken that head on. And this is, in a nutshell, the summary of our year, basically, as a district, and our achievements, and what we've done and haven't done, or our opportunities for improvement, things of that nature. So thank you both for that. And also, Chris, thank you to you. I appreciate the hard work you and your entire staff put into this. It takes a village. And I have nothing but great regards for everyone. The entire district has done a marvelous job. Perfect, ideal, absolutely not, but that's something we all strive for each and every year as we progress. But I wholeheartedly believe we have made great strides and are pointed in the right direction. We've been handed lemons. We're making lemonade, doing the best of what's been thrown at us. And I have full confidence that you and your entire team will continue working hard and trying to do what's best for every single student, for every single teacher, administrator, community member, for everybody that depends on OSD. Congratulations on a good year.
If I can just share with the board, I appreciate the comments from all the board members that shared. I would just like to share that we know, the team knows, the executive team knows that this is the right work that we're doing. And certainly we've been able to see the progress that we've been wanting to see, especially this year. I appreciate the comments about me, but I would share with you that it's really about the team, the organization. So I would like to take the opportunity, and although board members have said it, I want to publicly thank the staff, the support staff, and all of their work, because we could not do this work without them, and we would not have this success without our support staff. And for our teachers, everyone that's working closely with our students, they're certainly the ground workers, and they're making it happen. And we've asked a lot of our teaching staff and those working closely with our students. So I want to share my appreciation for all of our teachers and those working closely with our students. And we have an amazing team of leaders, from our directors, our assistant principals, our principals. These are the best leaders that I've worked with, and I've been in education now for 22 years. And I've been in several organizations. And I don't say this lightly. We have amazing, motivated, innovative, hard-charging leaders. So I wanted to thank them for their efforts in leading the work and working with their teachers and their support staff as well. And then I wanted to thank my team up here at the district office. They get it done. These are the best of the best. And I think everybody knows that and recognize that, from Pete to Sandra to Jeanette to John and Jennifer and Talia. That's my team, and they're making it happen. So all the results that you're seeing, we're certainly impressed, and we are so thankful for the comments, but it starts from the executive team and goes all the way down. It's a team approach. So from me to all the organization, I really thank you. I'm very impressed. Thank you for your comments.
Great. Moving on to item D1, or E1, excuse me. Review, discussion, revision of current board policies. We have EL 16, safety of students and staff. I don't see any modifications, or this is the final reading.
I have
Also,
a modification. I know I made this change. I'm sorry.
the tentative, can I call it tentative 7.1?
Yes.
We're so close to our calendar needing to be approved. This is our last meeting in May, and this is for June. Jen, I think after the retreat, we can come back and amend this to, after we make the linkage decision. Is that what you were referring to earlier?
No, actually, I have changed for EL 16 after reading through it this afternoon. But go forward with what you were going to say.
No, I was just going to say that Talia put this together just because, we are in need of this. Usually this gets approved at our retreat. Obviously, that's not the case this year. But I think this will serve as tentative for now, and it will be adopted at the retreat. So going forward, I think I didn't get meticulous with this. I didn't look at holidays, if they were on the Monday or Tuesday. I don't know if Talia was that meticulous with this. She says she did.
That part is meticulous. That part is correct. I checked it.
Thank you very much, both of you. Talia gave me a yes. So we will, does this need approved?
It does.
Yes,
it is a board policy. Yes,
yeah,
it does need to be approved.
Needs to be approved, even though we'll end up amending it here shortly.
We change it constantly anyway.
Absolutely. Having said that, I'll entertain a motion to approve GP 7.1, our annual board agenda.
I will make that motion.
Got a motion
I
by
will second.
Director Johnson, a second by Director Prowse. All in favor, aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, Jen, going back to EL 16.
So I went back through my notes. It just sounded so funny in the, can you pull that up? Where I added the and parents part, just it just didn't quite make sense because in under number 4 is where I added the and parents, because there's no way that the safe school plan can address all essential aspects of safety for parents. I think I intended it, and I went back through my notes, to be under 2. Implementing activities, programs of prevention against physical threats to students, staff, and parents, because I think that would apply if a student has expressed that they're going to have a physical threat or something to like their family member or something. I think that this would apply. And so I would like to amend this to take and parents off of number 4 and add it to the end of sentence. On number 2, I know that means we have to go to like a 3rd reading and that we couldn't approve it tonight, but I would rather have this be correct than and wait. But
Could and parents be added to number 2 as well? Because don't we want parents to, or do they get it? Do the parents already, we're saying that we want to distribute this comprehensive plan. I assume we want everyone to get it. So I'm thinking, should we add and parents to 2?
So if you read all of number 4, a failure to adopt, display, and distribute to staff, students, and parents a written school comprehensive plan that addresses all essential aspects of safety for students and staff. How I propose it, it already says that the parents will get the plan, but the parents can't be included in taking care of all of their aspects of safety, because that to me would apply to at-home stuff.
I stand corrected. I hadn't seen the parents in the parentheses.
Right. So I want to take and parents off of the end of the sentence of 4 and add it to the end of the sentence on 2.
Okay, then we'll make that correction, Jen, and we'll just table that to the next meeting and
Yes.
approve it as the final reading at the next meeting. Talia's making the notes right now.
And so then it will change to like a 3rd reading instead of final.
Okay. Although it will be the final reading with all the corrections. I think final reading would be the right.
But we could still make modifications.
Yeah, I mean, even after it's approved as the final reading, we can modify it any time.
Okay.
I think we're okay there. All right. Where's my agenda? Moving on, there is no need for an executive session tonight. Upcoming events.
I just have something for upcoming events.
Go ahead, Ken.
But maybe it's for an item on a future meeting, but this is for Chris. And this is the big question that I've had a lot of people asking me. What's fall going to look like?
What's fall going to look like?
What's fall going to look like? I've seen the recommendations come out from Chris Rydell this past week. I've seen the Center for Disease Control's recommendations. And then I read the spokesman review tonight, and they were kind of saying that they're going to leave it up to individual districts to make that decision if it falls within the guidelines that are set forth, because there's a lot of different circumstances. I could tell you, you're looking at a lot of those recommendations, and I stated this earlier, the only ones that are going to get hurt out of this is our kids. When you first come to the district, Chris, you used your attendance policy and how many days a kid misses out of school before he has the chance to not graduate or have a lot of difficulties. Well, unfortunately, that happened to every student this year in our school district. And I don't like what has been put forth in front of us by the CDC or Chris Rydell. I believe we need to get our kids back into school. We are very unique demographics here. We have very unique students. We have a lot of students that need that constant contact and learning for that 6.5 hours a day. So, and I know you've been in some discussion already on what to do, but we have a lot of parents and concerned citizens out there too, what fall is going to look like.
The last thing I want to do with my comment right now is open up a can of worms or anything else. But I think, Ken, you alluded to it, we are a distinct community. We are a very, sometimes I guess I'll say exception to the rule community. And I am not about, I got to be careful when I say this, going against Governor Inslee, breaking the law, being rebellious, or anything like that. But I have been approached by numerous parents stating that you guys need to do whatever you can. If you got to drive to Olympia, knock on Inslee's door to tell them that Othello needs their kids back in school. And I don't know. I don't know what it'll take. If it'll come down to that, maybe we're going to be back and everything's going to be okay. I don't know that. I pray for that every day as I go to bed. But we may have to make some tough decisions as a board to perhaps enact something. I don't know. Stand up and voice our opinions a little louder. I don't know what it'll take, but I agree with you, Ken. And I'm sure Chris, as soon as he knows something, we'll hear where it's at. But I'd like to put it out there that I think our community really wants to have our kids back in school, doing it in a safe manner, of course. Like I said, it's not about being rebellious. It's not about, your opinion, my opinion, or anything like that. But just food for thought that we may be confronted with some tough choices.
Chris, I know that you had said in the past that that the state has a whole team and group that are coming out with the 7 different ideas of how school will look. Is there a timeline on that?
Yes, what they shared with us, they being Chris Reichdahl, OSPI, is that they should have guidance to districts by mid-June. June the 15th is the date that they've been sharing with everyone. We do have a regional superintendent that's been on that task force of 72 or 73 members that's really looking at reentry for school districts across our state. And that's the Pascal superintendent, Michelle Whitney. In our conversation last week, she shared that I'm just going to be very careful with what I say, that districts, regional superintendents to really collaborate with one another and not rely totally on that 72 committee membership. So what we've done with the regional superintendents from ESD 123 is we have been put in groups and we're looking at a framework and having discussions on what are the things that we need to look at before we bring kids back into the school. So that ranges from school operations. So example, health and safety, looking at school meal plans, looking at transportation, whole child supports. There's a whole area under school personnel. Then you have academics, which includes our blended learning model, schedules, learning time. And then you have another category of distance learning, which deals with connectivity. So there's a framework that's being discussed with the regional superintendents, but I want to share with all the board members and the community that's listening that we already have an amazing team that's doing a lot of work right now. And as I share with our team, we're ahead of the game. So I'll be able to sit down at the table with the other superintendents and share the work that our groups are doing. And I think I sent an email to our board that shared that we already have groups established from elementary to middle school and high school groups. And they've already been working on a framework on what it's going to look like, feel like, and sound like for our kids to come back. What I can do is I can give the board a progress update, of course, throughout the week once my team updates me. But certainly by the next board meeting, I can give you some details and also a timeline where we are with that plan, our reentry plan. But just wanted to let you know that there's a lot of things that we have to consider. Another piece that we know that has to happen is this has to be done in conjunction with communicating with the Department of Health, our local Department of Health. So even though we have a plan in place, and even if it's our specific plan, there has to be a sit-down meeting with Department of Health, and they have to give us the go-ahead. So to answer your question, Ken, I absolutely agree. We have to have a plan and communicate that plan to the community. We're well on our way to doing that, and I'll be able to update the board next board meeting and give you some specifics.
All right, well, thank you for that, Chris. Unless there's anything else anybody wants to bring to the table, I'm seeing no's. Our business is concluded, and thank you once again, Othello. We're one day closer to ending, whatever we want to call this. I refuse for this to be the new normal. I commend everyone for working through this. I think as a community, we're doing a great job. Our numbers are reflecting that. As a district, I continue to see the smiles on kids when they get their meals and hear the stories of teachers. I had a client come in today and tell me that the teacher hand delivers homework to their son. And that was a comforting story. Like Jen said a while ago, perhaps everybody's not doing it, but those that are, I'm confident that every teacher in this district is doing the right thing and taking care of their students. Thank you all very much for doing that. Community of Othello, thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.